before I transitioned, I did no practical training, right? So I went to the schoolhouse. I studied for Security Plus, Network Plus, CISA Plus. I got all the certs, but I still cannot actually show you how to use Splunk or Wireshark or how to, run certain Linux commands and stuff. Lo and behold, I'm in my last 3 months of ETSing, which is separating from the military, and I get I'm putting my resume out there, clearance jobs, LinkedIn. I'm doing my due diligence, and I get a message from a recruiter from Insight Global. She said, "Hey, I have a 6-month contract, 6-month to hire contract with the CDC in Atlanta, and it was 100% remote work." It took me from making a salary of around $40,000, and I jumped up to $80,000 my first contract. I couldn't even tell the hiring manager, what a phishing email was, but he saw the dedication inside me. He was like, "Hey man, you got the drive. You willing to learn? I'll teach you." So I was a tier 1 socket.
Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Techtual Talk, where I'm your host, HD. We got a great guest for you guys today. He's really been putting in the work. He is what I would call, he became highly acclaimed from one of our other guests, her lane. She's like, "You gotta have him on. You gotta have him on." So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce you to Kajhon.
Appreciate it.
Yo, man, appreciate you for chopping it up with us today. I know you're going to put us on a lot of game, and especially different aspects of cybersecurity. And so when somebody legit always tells me about bringing somebody else on legit, it's always a blast. I always come back in here and really educate the people on things that they may not know or things that they can do in their own career that they just don't know about. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to start. Just give people information from what I know, being inside the industry. When I was trying to get inside the industry, and what I'm seeing now. These, more than half a decade I've been in it. Not too long as other people, but this industry is moving fast, so you just have to move fast with it.
That's dope, man. Can you give us a brief bio, like about your background, kind of like where you're from, who you are, kind of like your trajectory, whether like early career and kind of till now, and then we'll really start like on the meat and potatoes after that.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm originally from Hartford, Connecticut. Yeah, so I'm a New Englander in the New York stepchild. um, and coming out of Hartford, Connecticut, I lived there most of my life and childhood until I ended up going to high school and college in Atlanta, Georgia, and that was an interesting experience too. Just coming from the north and being, um, you know, taken aback by the culture in the South and how it was very different. One big thing that stood out was obviously the weather. But from there, I ended up, being just like anyone else, just going to high school, applying to colleges, taking the SATs, and then I realized I figured I will get into political science. I really have I really have a more social calling and help the people type mindset, and that's where it's always been at. Um, so I figured politics was my calling, just to figure out how I can change some of the conditions and be an impact to my community. Um, I ended up going to Georgia State. Was going to go to Morehouse, but I just didn't have the financial means, and I didn't feel like taking out student loan debt. I was very conscious about my financial future way early on as an 18-year-old. So after going to Georgia State for a little bit, I ended up dropping out on my second semester, and I joined the military. One of the reasons I joined the military is because of the background and my personal family. So you see behind me, I have a few pictures of some individuals, uncle, grandfather, and so on. And that's probably like my military wall back there. So I have a Vietnam vet in my family, Desert Storm vet, all Navy vet. So I decided to go into the Army as a 25 Bravo, which is an information technology specialist. I chose that because I was always a fan of computers, video games, just technology in general. Just like most of us. So it wasn't too difficult for me to decide that I can see a future in this. But I chose it with the intent of not staying for long and not doing a 20-year Army career. And no knocking to the people that do. It's just that, my generation, um, the Gen Z, it's we are on a wave. I can see with the millennials and the Gen Z of we want to create our future, right? And we're no longer going to be the quote unquote company man, um, because we just don't see the benefit and the return on investment. And when I mean investment, I'm not talking about just financially. I'm talking about your time, right? Your time is the most valuable investment you could put into. You only got 24 hours in a day, and that's like thousands of seconds also. So every second you spent doing something can be more productive, and depending on, do I want to stay at this job for 20 years at the same salary to expect maybe like a merit increase every couple of years and not get to where I want to be. Now part of that I feel has to do with uh, social media. We have been kind of like promoting this type of lifestyle, a be all you can be philosophy, but many people don't understand the work you have to put in. So going back to about myself, after joining the military, I did the military for. I signed up for a 5-year contract. Ended up getting out on 3 on a medical honorable discharge, and from there, I decided, hey, I want to transition into cybersecurity. Um, one of the things I did in the military was I was a VSAT technician on SATCOM systems, and that's satellite communications. And I worked for a aviation brigade. I worked for a field artillery brigade. I was stationed in South Korea. I was stationed in Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State. I did a bunch of things: networking, system administration, security. I was configuring those. VPN tunnels, using Cisco routers and switches, using Juniper, Brocade, um, anything you could think of. And yeah, so I decided that I didn't want to be a network engineer, system admin, IT help desk, and I wanted to transition to cyber. And the reason I decided that is because right around the time I was getting out, the Army had introduced a new military occupational specialty called 25 Delta, and that is a cyber network defender. I had a couple of non-commissioned officers who were part of my unit, and I was like, "What do you guys do?" And they were like, "Well, you design and implement our lands and W lands, and you maintain all the users' accounts and stuff. Well, we just protect all of it." So one of the sergeants, he ended up showing me Security Onion for the first time. He showed me a Security Onion. He showed me the Elk Stack, which is native to the operating system. Um, and then I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." He showed me McAfee ESM. That was my first SIM tool that I was introduced to, which came as part of the HBSS package. If you ever work for the DoD, they use McAfee for HBSS, which is host-based security.
I gotta jump in real quick when you said McAfee. You say you're using the McAfee Sim.
Yes, McAfee
You use the Nitro.
ESM, not Nitro. It was the actual ESM one, Enterprise Security Manager.
Okay, I was making sure
Yeah,
it wasn't Nitro because that was garbage. So you
right,
can
right.
you can carry on, man. I just had to jump in and see if they really was using Nitro out here.
Yeah, no. I'm familiar with Nitro though as well. Yeah, we did use ESM, and then we had McAfee e-policy orchestrator, which is called EPO. So he showed me a few tools, and I was more intrigued that he had access to see everything, pretty much. And I was like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I want to follow in those footsteps and see how I can become a cybersecurity professional. So, lo and behold, I'm in my last 3 months of ETSing, which is separating from the military, and I get I'm putting my resume out there, clearance jobs, LinkedIn. I'm doing my due diligence, and I get a message from a recruiter from Insight Global. She said, "Hey, I have a 6 month contract, 6 month to hire contract with the CDC in Atlanta." Now, this is during COVID, at the right before, right when COVID first started, back in like March or April, when we first known about it. So I took the position, and I moved from Tacoma, Washington, back to Atlanta, Georgia, and it was 100% remote work. It took me from making a salary of around $40,000, and I was only making that much because I was married with children. But $40,000 in the army, and I jumped up to $80,000 my first contracting gig. Right, so it just goes to show, and yeah, I had the secret clearance, but I couldn't even tell the hiring manager, what a phishing email was. But he saw the dedication inside me. He was like, "Hey man, you got the drive. You willing to learn? I'll teach you." So I was a tier one SOC analyst, and guess what I did when I came on for those 6 months? I was looking at phishing emails. So now, and I was escalating events to tier two and tier three, and the rest is history. And I've done a couple contracting gigs to get me where I'm at now, and that's working with CISA as a contractor under Raytheon. So
Dope, man. You touched on like a lot of different things,
yeah.
a lot of different things. I'm thinking that I wanted you. I know briefly I want to ask you, like, okay, I have typically, like, sometimes I've had clients that are separating from the military, or maybe they didn't think it through. What are things that they can do in order to get a tech job or cybersecurity, right? Because what happens is sometimes they get out and then they didn't, because all those resources y'all get while y'all there, some people don't utilize them and they have
Mhm.
issues trying to transition out of there. What are
Right.
some things they can do? And I do got to ask you this, though. I do got to ask you this. Like, I know, well, I can't say it's the play because some people are really hurt. Like, how old are you? Okay, yeah. Yeah. So when I got my first help desk job, I was working with people around your age that used to be previous military, like in the Air Force or whatever, who, were retired due to medical reasons, right? So, you're getting that medical pay, or what is it? This is like you're just army pay, whatever the pay is, be getting that. Now you got a full time job. So I've always seen like, hey, that's like one of the best plays there is, right? If somebody, I guess, like, is that what, can you like disclose that, not about yourself, but like if it's someone that has some stuff going on that's in the military now, but they like need to say, okay, bam, I need to plan because I ain't gonna be able to do this with this. I need this medical exception. That I need to be able to transition out.
Definitely. One of the things that's very, and I wouldn't say encouraged, but it's not necessarily known, is that how easy it is to leverage the military benefits to say, "Hey, I either came in with a pre-existing condition, or I came in as a healthy as a horse, and because of everything you guys put me through, right? The training, the intense physical exercises, my body has deteriorated, into a certain point. If you can point that out, if you can show a history, for example, before joining the military, I got into a car accident, right? And this car accident put me into chiropractic therapy for like 2 months. So I was able to show a paper trail of injury, pre-existing injury. So when I got into the military, we do what's called ruck marching a lot. You put 40, 50 pounds of stuff inside your ruck, and you walk for miles at a time. That was really detrimental to my back. So that was something in my personal case, which contributed to those factors. If you take the time to go to those clinics and see your actual your captain or lieutenant, whoever is the doctor on hand, and tell them, look, I'm not feeling well. I actually went through physical therapy in the military as well. They gave me the different exercises with the bands, with the ball, all that stuff. Don't be afraid to speak up if something's wrong. So can this be a catalyst for you pivoting out and say, hey, I want to leave, I need a career change? It can be, yeah. And don't be, feel bad about leveraging it that way. Listen, Uncle Sam is going to use you, everything you got, right? You can hear it, in your drill sergeant's voice. You can hear it in your commanding officer's voice. They're going to use you. So what I always say is milk that cow. Milk that cow, get everything you can out of it, and go from there. And that's, as far as that goes. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that. I'm the same way when it comes to doing things that are non-government related. I tell people, hey, get all the money you can from every job you take. If you can work multiple and swing it, do it. Get signed on bonuses, whatever you got to do, because the companies aren't guaranteed. You could be their best performer and get laid off. So I'm about always looking out for you. As T.O. always said, I love me some me. But with that, with that being said, now you told us how long you've been in like cybersecurity IT. So I believe you said roughly like 5 years now,
Yeah, this is my 6th year.
going on year six this year. What do you like about cybersecurity? Because you touched on how you got the job and didn't necessarily know everything, but you had that passion and zeal. And that's one of the things I do tell people about, especially when it comes to being in cyber. I tell people a misconception is that, you can just do all this stuff to get in and just do that forever. But because everything is always changing, it could be month to month, every couple of months. You have to always keep on learning new skills, reinvesting in yourself. Like I put on my story yesterday that I was going back because I had the back of my MacBook like a couple of months ago. So I lost some of my virtual machines, and I was doing this malware analysis course on TCM, and I had right. It's yep. And so I was re-downloading Remnux and Flare, which I hate dealing with virtual machine on Mac because it gives me so many issues. But I put it on my story, said back at it. Like it's just like sports. You can be at work, but then sometimes at work you get to the point where work like this. Okay, when it comes to sometimes people want to transition or go to another job, they sometimes cannot do it because they do not have the necessary skills to do other jobs because they've stayed in their role too long and haven't learned anything new. So I'll just touch back on what do you like about it and how have you been able to constantly upskill and learn different skills and keep on to thrive in your career. Well, early in your career, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to make it clear that before I transitioned, I did no practical training, right? So I went to the schoolhouse. I studied for Security Plus, Network Plus, CISA Plus. I got all the certs, but I still cannot actually show you how to use Splunk or Wireshark or how to, run certain Linux commands and stuff. Today, that is not the case, right? These days, I'd say within the past 3 years, there has been a wealth and awakening of cybersecurity training platforms, right? That's geared towards practical skills. One of the things why I love cyber is that it is an industry where you're constantly learning. You could never catch up. You can just always be in the race, right? Because it's going to continuously change. Actors, TTPs, different malware families, different tools. It forces you to transition, right? So whether that is cloud is another another component in which now we have cloud security because cloud as a platform and as a technology is increasing. We have Kubernetes and Dockers, containers, virtualization technology. We have DevSecOps, right, which came out of what DevOps is, and there was another necessary need to put in security in there. So, what I'm saying is, one of the things I enjoy about cyber is that It is cutting edge. It is very fun. It's very gamified like, but at the same time, you can see the actual impact of what you're doing. Um, and you can see that if you don't do this, don't minimize your role at any organization that you are. Because even if you're the lowest of the lowest SOC analyst, you're still that first line. If you miss something, that can be detrimental for the whole environment, whether you're in the private sector, public sector, whatever. Right. So you can take it really serious and say, hey, I have a passion about this. I'm gonna apply myself, and then always learn. Continuously learn and learn, because if you stop learning, your knowledge is going to be at a particular point in time, and you're going to be left behind. Right. I've been in environments where we change tools like that, right? We have one SIM platform, it's being phased out. We get a whole nother SIM platform, right? It's just, and you have to learn it all, right? I didn't know Elastic. I had to learn it. I had to go to the training because we transitioned from ArcSight to Elastic, right? So I would just say, cyber is so critical, right? And even though cyber and infosec is not synonymous, because infosec deals with just the protection of information in general, cyber is focused on that digital component. Cyber allows you to actually understand the world as it is from any technological point of view. It gives you a better understanding about the internet, about social media, about privacy and data rights, about constitutional rights, right? We talk about stuff like TikTok and Facebook, and all the times that they had to go into congressional hearings to talk about what are they doing with users' privacy and data. The cyber component, and why you should be aware of that, is because if hackers leak that sensitive information, that's your public information, out there for the world to see, right? So even if it's not yours, you may find yourself in an organization where you're protecting health information, PHI, PII, PCI, DSS, anything. So I would say, man, just learning opportunities. Cyber just invites an opportunity to just learn everything you can. And so, like I said, I was a paper chaser in the military because I thought that was the barrier to entry, and in a way, it still pretty much is, especially if you're going into the government space. But I have learned more, not from these certs, but from these platforms, from the TriHack meets, from the TCM, from the Blue Team Security, from Taggart Institute, from anything, you name it, right? Those platforms have given me range force. They've given me way more knowledge on how to do practical things than going after any certification ever did.
Right. And I'm gonna throw one in there. My guy Chris Sanders has some dope content as well.
Yes.
And but speaking of a platform, guys, you guys know that I have been partnering with Springboard.com. They have a cybersecurity boot camp. It's about 6 months long. You have a lot of practical projects that you do, and have prepares you for Security Plus. You have mentors, and if you're not able to land a job after you're done with the boot camp, they will give you your money back. So I'm gonna drop the link down in the description so you guys can check out Springboard if you're interested in learning those skills and having some type of form of learning put together that keeps you on track, because so many people try to self-study and they aren't able to really finish it because it's all over the place. They don't know what to learn. So some people need that organization. So if that's you, check out the link in the description, and yeah, you use my code, get $1,000 off your purchase. But I did like that you actually told people, because the way how I approach when I'm interviewing for different cybersecurity roles, right? I always make it a point to establish this to leadership that what I do isn't any better than what the level one or whoever does. Like everybody, regardless of what we get paid, right? We're all needed in order to make this thing work. It's the ultimate team game. I say it's like football. Like gotta have that left tackle over there blocking. If they're not blocking, they take over my blind spot. I get hit, regardless of who get paid the most. They gotta do their job. I gotta do my job. The receivers gotta do their job. Running back gotta do their job. That's what it boils down to. It shouldn't be who's most important, but you know how sports is. But moving away from that topic, let's talk about one reason and one of the bigger reasons why I started this whole platform and why I bring on people like yourself or a lot of the black women that I brought onto this platform about being a black man in cybersecurity, right? Like I remember, I went, I got to find this tweet, and it was probably about 2 3 years ago when I was saying, hey, they have no problem hiring black people for like help desk roles, but as you go up, you start seeing less and less of us, and that still holds to be true. What I typically try to do everywhere I go somewhere, if I have like a higher rank, that's not like if I'm like right under the management or I'm a lead type of level, I always try to either bring somebody from my old team or somebody I know bring with me, because not only does every culture probably have their own. I'm trying to say this in a way where people can understand what I'm trying to say, and you probably get what I'm saying. Everybody looks at things differently, and when you don't have a diverse team, it's possible to miss things based on mindsets. Like everyone knows different things. That's why it also helps to not always hire the same people with similar backgrounds. If you get different backgrounds, you get a different viewpoint. I've told the story before about how I was interviewing with Microsoft and how the guy was like, your background is typically different than what we typically talk to, but I believe it'll be needed because we haven't had anybody that's came from your standpoint. We always get these other type of people. And that's how sometimes the ways you get some of the things that may be missed because you're used to fixating on one thing, but this other person says, hey, what about this? Y'all thought about this? So with that being said, when it comes to black people being in cyber, we are heavily underrepresented. I know you said you had some numbers for us, so I want you to briefly talk about being a black man in cybersecurity and also the statistics of us being in cybersecurity.
All right. I want to bring it up so you guys can have a visualization of it. Um, so this is by the Pew Research Center. If you don't know who that is, they're typically an authority on data statistics and whatnot. This article is from 2021. Yeah, 2021. And what I want to point out is of all STEM jobs, science, technology, engineering, and math, black folks encompass 9% of that. Specifically, in computer occupations, we encompass 7% of that, right? And the black woman is even lower in that regards, right? As it relates to infosec, according to the U.S. Labor Department, African Americans make up 3% of all infosec personnel in the United States. So 3%, right? And again, the majority of that is black men, little of that is black women. Um, it speaks to a bigger issue that, like the article says, there is a complaint of a talent shortage. I don't believe there is. I believe there are a wealth of individuals out there who are hungry, who have the mental fortitude and the drive to actually want to come into this industry. Now, where is the barrier of entry, right? When applicant tracking system has received a resume, what is it parsing? How is it looking at this information? How is it deciding which candidates to put in front of a hiring manager and which one not to? Right? Is it going based off name, based off experience, and based off of the equal opportunity information that you put in your application that you're black, that you're male or female, right? Um, I don't know. I don't have that data. I'm not going to suggest that there is some type of a bias and prejudice built into those algorithms. But as we know, with a lot of automated technology and AI, that is the case, and that has already been proven by like MIT and other institutions. So I just want to say, like, being a black person in this space, I often find myself the only black person in the room, right? And some of the times the youngest too. So, how do we define the metrics of, okay, you may say, well, black people are not choosing this profession. That may be the case. I will say there is some weight to that, right? There's a lot of young people, in particular, who don't know about the existence of this particular field, right? But there are organizations that exist to change that. There's Blacks in Technology. There is Black Cybersecurity Association. There's Blacks in Cyber, right? Um, these organizations are nonprofit and they exist to serve the greater community, to put that information out there to say, hey, this is an option you can pivot to, right? These statistics speak to something that has been going on for a long time. Um, and it's not only specific to the tech and cyberspace, but you'll find yourself in many different rooms, whether you're in cloud, AI, learning, robotics engineering, and you're the only one, right? So don't don't let that be a crutch. If anything, let that be a superpower, right? To say, I got here and I'm not unique, right? We can get here together as a people if we wanted to. Now, what does that look like, right? One of the things that we can do is, like you said, when you know of individuals who are technically sound, who are good to put into environment to bring onto the team, yeah, that's another way of looking at it. Well, this person looks like me. I want to give them an opportunity, right? But also, they don't just look like me, but they have the merit and performance to excel, right? Because we don't want to just bring them on for the sake of looking like us. I want people that can actually excel and put forward the power and drive behind the representation, right? Because what's the point of me bringing you on and if you're just going to be a failure, right? Um, so that's one key thing. Many of us infosec professionals, if you're just a SOC analyst and your SOC manager or your program lead or whatever, they're looking for more people. Hey, reach out to your people, man. Say, hey, I know you've been trying to get into the space. What do you have? Help them out. If their resume needs to be cleaned up, if they need to brush up on their interview skills, be that person in your circle to help them so you can change some of the demographics of these environments, and there's definitely a lot more we can do in that space. But me personally, I have never it never dawns on me until I'm in a meeting or I look back and I just read the room and I'm like, where's everyone else at? I don't. I let my performance speak for itself. So if there is those individuals with those biases and prejudices to say, who are judging me without even hearing me speak or seeing my work performance, there is no doubt. And I don't do it for them. I do it for me, right? And I do it because, I intend on being the best self I can for myself. So, um, yeah, being black in cyber is just continue doing what you're doing, right? Really, just don't. You're gonna get those doubts. You may get those eyeballs. You may have locks. You may have an afro. You may not look, professional, in the eyes of the American standard, but don't let that stop you. Be yourself, and you may not have to switch up. I don't switch up, right? I don't code switch. I don't like that. It's really not true, and it's really not showing the most integral parts of your character when you have to code switch in your environment. Yeah, of course, you're not going to act the same you would with your cousins and family and friends at work. There's a time and place for everything, but don't try to minimize who you actually are to fit in with the actual demographic or acceptable space. With people that don't look like you. So, yeah, just be mindful. See where you can help, where you can get into some of these organizations I talked about. Blacks in cyber, which is big. Blacks in technology. Black Cybersecurity Association. Look into what the work that they're doing, and don't be afraid to network and put people on if you're already in this space. And if you're not in this space, definitely go to those organizations and see how they can be a benefit to you.
Definitely, man. Thanks for the numbers and your spiel on that. I'll chime in real quick because I've been trying to add nuggets on like every episode. So I won't go too long on this, but when it comes to ATS, what they typically try to do is try to the keyword is try, and I will probably say more updated ATS systems. They'll typically not have the name or anything, so screw up the name off of it. So just only looking at the resume. So the biggest issue that I found being a career coach the last 3 years is the fact that people's resumes do not highlight their skills that are relative to the role good enough. And the perfect example of this is I just did a consultation, and he'll probably be watching this as it premieres. I just did a consultation with a subscriber, and I looked at his resume. I was like, bro, you got all these skills and you apply these jobs and you're not getting anything, no, any hit bats. So after that consultation, I went ahead and just did a solid. I just put his resume's contents in my resume template. And he emailed me back, I think a day or two after that. And he has a interview coming up for like a senior IT auditor. Because he got the skills, bro. I'm talking about projects, metrics, numbers, everything. And so I say that to tell people, I say a lot of times I look at their resume right away because recruiters only look at your resume like 6 or 7 seconds. I was like, right away. This is too much to read and it's not highlighting your best skills. I said, this thing is only supposed to just highlight you to where you have a bigger conversation in the interview. They're not finna read through all this and they're going to miss something and they're going to toss it out. Because the misconception is that the ATS is typically telling you no, but actually a human is still reviewing the resume. And if it's like that, they're going to also just toss it out. So it's one of those things as well. Also, one of the issues is that, and I probably will have to get like an HR person on here, but I know for a fact that there is some type of quota to have whoever on the team. I think one of the issues is us starting, shout out to my guy, Marcus Bowie's CyberWeb, having our own company so we can hire more people that look like us that don't have the opportunity. I think the biggest thing, like while you're doing those two articles, I wrote an article about diversity in cybersecurity. And one of the things that I say is the biggest issue for us not being in cybersecurity often is exposure. And I talked about my anecdotal experience of not knowing really about cybersecurity. Truth be told, until I was about 2021 in like a class that I did in undergrad, a forensics class, I kind of say, oh, dang, we could do all this stuff. So even, especially if you come like to the South, like now it's a little bit bigger now. I mean, I've been out of school a while now, but back then they weren't coming in and telling you, oh yeah, you can do this and this, you can go do this, have a high paying job. Cause really cybersecurity is more like a trade than it actually is for something that you just have to go to school for. I really believe most technical positions are more trade like instead of like other careers, but that's just me. So I think that's an issue. I think, like you said, do we have to interview things, or also you do have hiring managers and their biases, or a lot of people get deterred from job descriptions. I look at it and I look at what they're trying to pay. So sometimes if a recruiter reaches out to me, I'll say, what does the hiring manager really want? Because I look at it and say, this is about 3 or 4 people in one row. Like, you're not going to play me. It's just a lot of different things. And don't even get started on how sometimes they'll intentionally interview you the wrong way to try to make you look bad and not ask you things that are relevant to the role. So there are a whole bunch of gatekeeping things that happen that will keep you out of there. And so what you can do, like he said, is reach out to individuals that's been in the space a while, reach out to people that have influence. I have like videos that kind of show people how to use LinkedIn the right way to network yourself. And there are other things I haven't put on LinkedIn because I can't share them. And that's when I tell people, hey, come get some coaching from me, which I want to let you guys know I'm working on a financing option that will benefit everyone. Because I know one of the things with cost, I don't try to upcharge too much because I know some people were laid off, lost their job. But I'm doing this for y'all. So hopefully when this finance option come out, y'all really come rock with me so we really can help everybody get into the game. or put me in, coach, as they say. But those are like some of the reasons that I know why. Also, on just things that we can work on ourselves to help us be a little bit more successful in these roles.
Definitely, yeah. And I just want to, give flowers to yourself, Tay on Tech, Day Cyberwalks. You guys are doing the job of bringing the information on these social media platforms straight to the consumers. When you think about business, you think about direct to consumer type of products and services. What you're doing is definitely a product and service. Um, you know, Many of young people, especially even people in 30s, 40s, they're on these platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and getting that information directly to them basically starts to close that exposure gap to say, oh, wait, I didn't know this was possible. And culturally, we are very flashy and very like to have nice things because many of us never had it. So when you show how did you get this, how did you get this car, how did you get this house, how you go on these trips, what do you do? Well, I work in IT, I work in cybersecurity, right? What is that? And now you just spark a conversation, and you and there's a growing stigma of that these things are not for us. That these other people run the world and run this, and we'll focus on the more traditional routes that we've been told to go after. Maybe sports, music, lawyer, doctor, those things like that. Medical field, admin field, nothing tech, because there's also a cultural mindset that we never historically um, thrived in this field, so why should we start now? And what the era in that thinking is not knowing the history behind all of the black pioneers in the tech space, the individuals who were responsible for it, some of the most foundational technology that allows us to communicate and do the things we do. Like when you think about the black woman that allowed stuff like FaceTime, Zoom, and the actual video streaming technology to be put in place, right? Many people don't know about those highlights, right? So I just think it's very important. Or when we talk about Philip Emeagwali, Philip Emeagwali, Nigerian, who was successful in creating one of the first microprocessor CPUs back in like the 80s, and his technology has infused what other people like at Intel and IBM and all these other big companies have already done in the past. They're just not highlighted. We've always been in this space. We've just been in the background, so.
Yeah, man, that's true. I mean, for me, it's just showing people like I'm glad like everyone has their own different way of telling people, different things on how to get here or what they did, because there's no one path to get here. I start off help desk. I had other people that didn't necessarily do help desk, and that's fine. I'm not one of the people that say, "Oh, you must do this." No, I tell people to come in the best way you can. That's my goal. Now, I do tell some people sometimes working a lower level role could possibly help you if you don't know absolutely anything. It'll help you transition a little faster than having to figure out all this stuff, not knowing much. Because some people don't know much even about just basic computer stuff when they're trying to be like a SOC analyst. But those
Right.
are those are conversations for another day. So you are a cyber adversary pursuit analyst. What is
That's
that?
correct.
Or tell us in layman's terms, was it? Because it actually
Right.
seems like it's a bunch of roles, but a cool name.
Yeah. It is just a cool name, right? In layman's term, it is a threat hunter, right? That's basically what it is. However, I am focused on adversaries. So your advanced persistent threats, I go after them. Right? A lot of the work is heavy intelligence, right? And I do work in classified spaces, and I work in unclassified spaces. My job is to track the presence of adversaries in federal civilian networks, right? Again, I work for CISA. So, being that's the case, if you know the mission of CISA as the nation's cyber defense agency, right, then you know that we're are pre-positioned to make sure we're protecting the bulk of all of our federal civilian non-DoD, non-military networks, and even both state, local, tribal, and territorial networks. Um, yeah, so it's threat hunting at the end of the day.
Cool. Could you tell the audience what is an advanced persistent threat? I think that would be a cool word that they could take away from this conversation.
Definitely. So, APT. Make sure you know that acronym and you keep that in the back of your head. Advanced persistent threat is any threat that is highly sophisticated, that is highly supported, through financial means, typically backed by nation state actors or other large criminal enterprises, and that the persistent part comes in because they go for long periods of time undetected, right? I believe at the RSA conference not too long ago, Kevin Mandia mentioned some statistics that Mandia have been doing on how long APT has been staying inside individuals' networks. And I believe the actual mean time to detection is like 4 months before you actually know that an adversary has been. Mhm. Right. Yeah. So um, they're not your normal bad actor. These are individuals who are sometimes attributed. Most of the time, they're attributed, right? And when I say attributed, meaning that they have a name, right, given by people like CrowdStrike, FireEye, Microsoft. They have a name because their TTPs and some of their IOCs are common and reoccurring. So again, advanced persistent threat is an advanced hacker. It is not one individual; it's multiple. It is a group. It can be a nation state. It could be a criminal enterprise like a dark side ransomware group. Who are responsible for Colonial Pipeline, right? So
Yeah. And I was gonna say, like when you're talking about sometimes people don't know, last week Dayspring and I reacted to this article from Bleeping Computer about decoy dog malware. And I think they found over through 70 billion DNS records that they had pretty much been there for about a year and people didn't know about it, like hiding like a plain sight, just making up like legitimate sites and then, pulling the rug under your feet so you fall. So you're definitely right on that. And for my people, I always try to do stuff some good layman's terms. For my people who watch Amazon Prime, if you have not watched this episode, as a matter of fact, it's not sponsored by Amazon Prime, but Amazon Prime Music, if y'all see this, I need some sponsorship money. There's a show called Peripheral. And this is one of the things that I typically envision that cybersecurity will probably get to in like 100 years, 200 years. And there, these bad people have the ways that they can hack all different type of things. And it's a group of people. It's not just one person, but they can do physical harm to people as well, which we possibly could see as well. Like right now, everything is strictly digital, but I do believe there'll be a time when technologies advance far enough to where these things can also turn physical, to where you're going to have like a more important level of severity when these things happen. But you can think of a group like that that's after a goal that you have to what you have to do, detect them. In the situation I'm talking about, if you guys watch the episode, they tried to trick the people they were after, and they made it loop like they were somewhere else, but they really were like probably like 5 minutes away from them, right? And so these are different things you can talk about. And so in going like that, we can talk about one of the things that people typically would look down upon, but you have like security guards, right? Security guards look at CCTV. Now, you could think that's a small role or not. However, what if there's a threat in the building and someone just loop the CCTV like nobody's there, all the while the people are actually there and are probably about to commit something against a company? That's a legitimate threat, right? So that's one of the reasons why when I work with people who are trying to pivot and they tell me they do something, it's like, oh, I'm a security guard, and then we talk about what they do. I was like, nah, You do some similar stuff that we do in a SOC. It's just more physical. You just got to relate that over to whoever you're interviewing with so they understand you get the concepts. But I was like, in fact, your job may be somewhat important because you're keeping people safe. I always highlight that. But that's just my little tidbit about pivoting. So you said you're specifically a threat hunter. So threat hunter falls on the purple team, correct?
Yes, there is an overlap. Purple team. You may, depending on who you talk to, depending on the organization, threat hunters typically is synonymous with blue team. I've seen some people categorize threat hunter as red team, but it's definitely in the middle with the purple team, and it's important because the job as a threat hunter and why it's different from a incident responder or a SOC detection analyst is the fact that threat hunters look for anomalous behavior in your environment that's not traditionally detected by your security tools. So your antivirus, your IDS IPS, your firewall, your proxy. Those are tools that detect um, activity typically based upon access control list or signatures, right? Threat hunters, we look for the stuff that's not being alerted on. So if you're in your Splunk enterprise security and you're getting alerts, we're looking for the stuff that's not, that's not sending those alerts out. So that involves us being very proactive and thinking like an adversary, understanding the environment, understanding our most critical assets, and where would I rather look for signs of intrusion? Or, if we're using like the cyber kill chain methodology, um, signs of command and control activity, right? So yeah, it definitely can be either or depending on who you talk to. Um, you need to understand hacking. You need to understand um, pen testing, red teamer perspective to be a great threat hunter. You need to know what looks normal and what doesn't because you're looking at raw data. You're looking at raw host logs, right? Windows logs, registry information, processes. You're looking at raw net flow, right? Not even firewall logs or any of that. You're just looking at raw network traffic, and you need to understand how does this how does this deviate from the baseline, right? And can I bring this up and write a report about this and look into it for further activity? So
Definitely. I had like two questions about that. So, what's a typical day in the life of your role? And then two would be what type of tools would someone need to, well, you kind of explained it, but that's kind of like the methodologies, but what type of tools or skills would someone need to work on in order to, we'll just say, to become a threat hunter? Like you kind of told them a little bit, but like if there are certain actual tools they need to learn or they can learn on Try Hack Me or Range Force or INE or TCM or Cybrary or Coursera or anywhere, like what type of tools should they learn how to use as well?
yeah, so as far as the tools go, surprisingly, the tools are just the tools you already have in your environment, right? There may be room to gather more tools of interest, right? If you're thinking about active countermeasures, they have Rita, right? That's a good tool. You have Velociraptor. There's a nice another open source tool. Um, but typically, depending on what your environment is and what it looks like, hey, do you have a sim? Can you use the searching language, whether it's KQL for Elastic, whether it's SPL for Splunk? Can you actually pivot from all of your different types of logs and activity? Most of the stuff you're looking at is just data and not necessarily a tool. You can definitely correlate different events across tool sets. You can look if there's any historical IDS activity. Have we seen this IOC in the past? But like I said, this it's more so um, based on methodology and less on tool specific because you can threat hunt with very little and not know it. So Speaking of learning a different tool in the process, Security Blue Team has a threat hunting course, what I believe is you can purchase for $20. Um, and Range Force has a threat hunting path, a battle path. I don't remember the actual price on that. Those two, if you really want to know how to think like a threat hunter, what are the certain things that we use open source intelligence a lot, right? More so than your average SOC analyst. We are heavy on OSINT. We're heavy on understanding signatures too and behaviors. We have to understand how Yara works, right? How Snort works, because one of the things that you want to do is once you detect some behavior, you want to create a signature to follow that adversary's pattern to continue on in the future. And then to answer your other question, what does my day to day look like? So primarily, I am set up in an environment where I have a team of cyber threat intelligence analysts. These cyber threat intelligence analysts are responsible for basically sourcing all intelligence, whether classified, government, non-government, your public sector intelligence, right, and providing me with the most important reports and information that I can take and kind of basically go forward and hunt in the environment. If I'm getting certain information about a particular APT and how prevalent they may be. For example, with certain malware families are on a rise, maybe 0 days, certain Trojans, certain rats. Typically, you may find one adversary group known to use that particular malware more than others. And also botnets, so what that looks like for me is I get a report, I analyze the report, I make sure I understand all the nuances, I understand the behavior in this report, and I take the information, the key components, and I go and hunt in the environment. I may have IOCs, I may have no IOCs, I may have a user agent string, I may have something particular to look for, right? A registry key, and I just go from there. So that involves me plugging in some IOCs into NetFlow. We use Silk, right? You may have other NetFlow tools such as StealthWatch and other tools available. Um, I can plug in my EDR, right? Any tool that enables a individual to investigate. So a EDR tool like CrowdStrike, right? Like Tanium. These tools allow you to actually look at the activity that's going on in the host in real detailed level. And then you can couple that with some of the network activity that you may see coming from a particular host. So yeah, that's I know that's a lot, but it's simple. I'm threat intel based. If I have no intelligence, I don't know where to start, right? So the intelligence analyst pass me the information, and I go from there.
No, that's dope. You definitely just told him about the dynamic duo at the end with Tanium and CrowdStrike, two of my favorite EDR tools as well. But and now here's the fun question, man. What are those government salaries like? Shout out to Bees. Bees is always on TikTok telling people about getting into the government space to really get this bread. And so now we have another person in the cybersecurity space that is pretty much a government contractor. Well, government subcontractor, either one. But what are those salaries like?
Yep, I know that's the question everyone's been waiting to hear. So salaries, they're not much different than what you may find in the private sector. Here's the difference: you're coming in with a clearance, right? That's the big, um, defining factor in what a government agency is willing to pay out to the contractor and what the contractor companies want to give to you, right? If we're looking for people with secret clearances, top secret polygraph, they're willing to go as high as possible. I mean, I've seen, and typically I want to base this correctly too. If you're to go on to clearance jobs, Indeed, LinkedIn, and you just search up clearance, right? secret clearance, top secret, whatever, and you look at the cyber and IT roles, network engineering, network admin, system admin, cyber, what you're going to find is that for a less amount of experience, right, coupled with the security clearance, they're willing to pay you a lot more. And the reason is these companies are defense contractors and they're in the business of pipeline engagement. They're looking for those individuals coming straight out of the military or who have them government civilian jobs, right? Who want to transition into contracting. As far as the numbers go, a typical SOC analyst position, to be honest, I haven't seen anything below. I want to say 100,000 for an entry level position as a SOC analyst. Right. And it goes from there, right? So you can come in with 1 or 2 years of experience, considered entry level, with the secret, top secret clearance, $100,000, and you can go from there, right? Now, depending on what the LCAT might say. So these companies have a labor category they have to run the government by. If the government says that I want somebody with 5 years of experience, is really Splunk heavy, has a top secret clearance, and I will pay them anywhere from $135,000 to $170,000, you may ask yourself, why such a big gap? Well, once that person talks to you, they need to actually gauge what you actually know. And they need to see if your requirements match the LCAT. So let's say the perfect candidate for a government agency, they have a bachelor's degree in cyber, they have 5 years of experience, they have Security Plus, and they have a Pen Test Plus or a CEH to fill all the requirements of compliance, right? Let's say you come in and you have about 70% of those requirements. They're going to be like, well, we know we can't get our unicorn out of you. However, we're willing to start you off on the lower end, making 130 rather than on the higher end. So don't come in with unrealistic expectations. I don't want people to get this idea that once I have a clearance, I'm golden, right? Right? That there is nothing that can stop me from excelling and getting everything. There is something that can still stop you. You still have to put in the work. The clearance is not the end all be all. There's a lot of individuals I know who have clearances who are trying to pivot into this space, and they're finding it just as difficult, even with the clearance. Now, the barrier to entry is a lot smaller. When I look at government jobs, not government jobs, but non-government jobs like Google, Facebook, TikTok, all these private sector jobs hiring, SpaceX, whatever, within a span of 24 hours, it may already have upwards of 100, 200 applicants, right? When I compare that same job to a government job, I may see maybe 5 or 10 applicants within the span of 24 hours. The difference is the clearance, right? Of those individuals with the clearance, who actually qualifies for the job? So I don't want you to get this wrong idea that because I have a clearance, I'm now basically the golden standard or the golden ticket for any job I put my hat in. I've ran into that problem where I believe naively that I can get any job I want as long as I have the clearance. That is not the case, right? But anyways, the government salaries are paying nice, right? They are paying nice. They're substantial. You can get up to 200,000, well over 200,000, right? And yeah, you still have to put in the work though. The clearance allows you to be into a niche space of government contracting, right? And even if you go overseas, you get that tax-free money up until a certain point though. I think it's like the first 120,000 is tax-free. After that,
like X amount of days, so you got to kind of
exactly right. So there's a lot of you may see a TikTok and shout out to Simone B, shout out to everyone out there, Herlane, everyone out there putting out this information. But there's a lot you won't get in that little 10-second, 30-second clip on Instagram or TikTok, right? You need to actually sit down and look at all this information. And I recommend clearance jobs. I recommend clearjobs.net. and cyberseek.org, because cyberseek.org actually shows you all the public available jobs in the government space as well. So there's a lot of tools out there to gauge, you know, what you can do inside the government space. The salaries are nice, but don't get it twisted. You still got to put in the work, and you know you can't just get a job based upon the clearance alone.
Yeah, it's crazy because while you were talking, I was trying to log onto my old clearance jobs account, but I forgot the password, so I had to send a
Yeah.
thing to my other Gmail. So I'll do that later on because I was like, man, I was trying to like say, hey, yeah, he telling the truth because my clearance is not active, but it doesn't expire till next year because I got it back in 2014. It's crazy, it's been that long. I think I like. Well, I think I got another secret one right after that one because I was doing TSA stuff, and then they had us doing some DHS crap. But then I ended up leaving like 2016 from that company. But super dope, man. I'm glad you also told them about also just putting in the work. There are a lot of times, just like on the private side as well, it's like just thinking you should just get the role just because of your resume or whatever, not realizing hey, you may not be a good fit for it skill wise. I think that was cool for you to throw that in there because some people do think it's the magic ticket. Oh, I got the clearance. They're gonna hire me anyway. I'm like, maybe if they like you. Now, sometimes it happens if they like you, or it's some other factors at play. So, can you speak to some of the biggest challenges you faced in your job and how you overcame them? And you can do this at a high level. I know it's not a lot that you can really speak on specifically because of like what you do and the type of information that you have access to.
Right. Yeah, so the nature of my job, like you said, it's hard to talk about, but you know, it's still the cyber industry. It's still SOC environments and you know, hunting environments, whatever you may have. You're gonna find some of the same things where you go, right? I had to overcome different personalities, different leadership, right? There are some individuals who are know-it-alls. There's some individuals are who are really like they don't want to see you ascend higher than what you already are. You come into an organization and you fill a particular role, right? Your first SOC level position, entry level position. There's some SOC managers, there's some team leads, tech leads who would rather keep you there and not want to train you or allow you to expand in your greatest potential, right? I'm really big on I'm really big on training and making sure that when I leave here, there is someone else to take my spot and to carry on and to keep the torch going, right? So I just want to continue to say that some of the challenges may not be within yourself; it may be other people, right? And I would say one of the other challenges is continue to train, continue to teach yourself, continue to teach yourself, and continue to train and to be diligent and to if your job is not giving you that proper on the job training, bring it up to somebody. And also, don't hey listen, don't wait for somebody to hold your hand. I want to say one of the reasons I got to where I am at such a young age is every environment I came into, right? I've worked for the CDC, I've worked for Defense Counterintelligence Agency, I've worked for the Pentagon, right? And I'm working for CISA. I've left a lasting impact on every one of those in one of those environments, right? Whether it was something I spoke up about, whether it was something I actually came in and technically changed around, whether it's simple as updating SOPs and work instructions, because you want the people to come behind you and do the right thing, right? So the challenge you may face is again being stagnant. I see a lot of people coming in and I'm just on swing shift. I'm on mid shift. I'm on day shift. I'm just a SOC analyst. I don't want to do anything more than this, right? I don't want to learn. I don't want to grow. I'm going to stay here for a couple of months, a couple of years, and if they don't pay me right, I'm leaving. Okay, okay, it's important to hold people accountable, but what do you bring to the table? See, my problem is people in this space are demanding a lot, but putting in very little, right? There's few individuals who are actually putting in the work to be paid what they're worth. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want people to get it twisted. Yeah, those Instagram and TikTok, our videos are nice and they're giving everyone a lot of motivation, but I'm not seeing people actually reflect that in the work that they're putting in. So don't stop yourself and be stagnant because you're hindering yourself from growing. Like, be very proactive in what you're doing.
Yeah, man. You said you said a mouthful just now. You said how people want the most but not put in the work. Like it this is the generation of that. I don't want to put in the work. I want to get a six-figure job, but I want to work remote too. I don't have a lot of skills. They should just want to hire me. I want to do day in the life. I want to go get massages. And this is the group of the people, but they are the ones that are probably running into the most trouble because the jig has been up.
Okay. All right.
I say it every episode now, but the jig has been up now. They did a lot of overhiring the last 3 years. Now there are people who knew what they were doing that's got caught in these crosshairs of these layoffs, but then there are people who were just taking up space. I've read articles and reacted articles about how at Meta they were just hiring people just so they weren't be at the bigger tech companies, but they weren't really doing work. So, like you said, if a person say, "Oh, I'm just going to job hop where?" Like they may hire you just because maybe like it's only rare occasion you just get hired based off of who you used to work for. But for most of the time in the technical roles, like I tell everybody, they don't care about that. Like we need to know what you know how to do. And if you can't do it, we're not gonna hire you. So it'll behoove you to learn. Not only that, people have to look at if somebody say just want to come and be a SOC analyst, it's cool. But now we have so much machine learning and AI to where now the requirement may be for a person to be level two, level three skill wise, to where a lot of that level one work is pretty much phased out. So you can't try to have the bare minimum skills anymore and try to get paid more because of all the technological advances that are coming. And that's one of the things I was going to ask you. The next question was going to be like, how do you see cybersecurity changing in the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you plan to adapt to it? Because that's one of the other reasons why I keep myself so busy. I'm working on this, or I'm trying to do all these other things because I can see out foresight. I can always see 5, 10 years down the line. Okay, things are going to look different. How do I set myself up in a position to where I'm still marketable in this market?
Definitely. To answer that question, I'm going to preface some information. So, the 2022 most um, most prevalent and prolific cyber attacks were these three, right? Ransomware based, cloud, and IoT, right? Um, Ransomware is something that's still going on, obviously, and it ramped up since COVID. Cloud based and Internet of Things. So, what does that tell you? Many companies are now pushing out products to address those concerns, right? To know where cyber is going, look at the future of the products and services coming out, and look at the actual state of cyber incidents and cyber attacks. Cloud is definitely, I would say, get spun up on AWS Azure. Um, we use Microsoft Defender, Sentinel. Those are cloud-based products in our environment. Um, I would say for Internet of Things, really like understand that that is a actual subsection of cybersecurity now. You can be a IoT security engineer, right? You can be focused on those appliances, right? Like maybe you can be focused on, household appliances. I remember when yeah, Google Nest. I remember Ring. Ring was a subject to a lot of cyber attacks, and
Doorbells and talking through
right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, before you finish off on that, I was going to say is also while I've been preaching to everybody, also look into industries and things that they're interested in as well to find those passion projects, right? Because those are ways like you can say you can help yourself also
Mhm.
niche down. Niching, I think it will be probably the key for people to stay relevant and to be working on things. And also to throw in the two things like, right, autonomous vehicles, the metaverse, augmented reality, and then even a
Mhm.
step further with the IoT, you're going to start having more and more IoT smart cities. So more things going to be
Mhm.
interconnected. So they're probably going to have a team just dedicated just to that. And now you're going to have to understand those attack vectors are probably going to be different because the traditional way that people use them are different. So those are some things that people can look into, but you can continue on. I just had to throw it out or I'll forget it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's exactly right. And I want to mention critical infrastructure. CISA, we're really big on ICS. We have a whole team of just ICS analysts focused on operational technology. So not IT, but OT, right? And that those are the components that actually allow these ICS and SCADA systems to run. The power plants, the meat packing facilities, the water grid, right? The electric grid, the water sector. So if you want to get into, industrial security and doing that, do that, right? If you want to get into AI, machine learning, look, I've seen so many AI and machine learning cyber jobs pop up recently. You need to understand that they're now moving towards automated tools and systems that they need people who understand the actual algorithm and the language behind AI to implement inside these organizations. MITRE, Booz Allen, these companies are doing a lot of research and development, a lot of R&D for how can we combat a lot of these cyber attacks that, like you said, are very nuanced and tier one based, using artificial intelligence and infuse it in our traditional security products, right? Can you imagine if your IDS IPS system or your EDR tool had some AI component to differentiate standard normal activity, false positives, and something that's actually real? You know how much work that would take off the actual analyst in triaging that particular alert and event? So, yeah, I would say, listen, get into cloud, get into AI, get into ICS. I feel like that's where the industry is going, right? Keep the foundational stuff, right? The stuff that you're actually doing in your current SOC role or your prospective SOC role. That stuff is going to be very important. So, you need to know some of the traditional stuff to continue on to move in these little pivots and niches. Because that's the only way you're going to survive.
And I want to
Yeah.
touch on a thing that I've been talking about the last couple of episodes, and people probably going to say I sound like a record player, but
Mhm.
as we get back into AI, let's just think about from a company standpoint. Now you have tools that can mimic people's voice. So let's say someone social engineered a VIP at your company, and they know how they
Mhm.
talk, and so they sent something out, and it looks like it's the real work company email, but it's not, and it's them acting like it's them talking. Like just think about these things, just like it's not the same, but it was last year. Some company act like they were they made up this fake Twitter account and they were acting like they were the insulin company, and it was like, oh yeah, our prices or something. They said something about the insulin, and then made all their like stock prices and stuff go down but it wasn't the actual company. They made a fake
Mhm.
page, and this comes with the verification piece or all these different things where hey, now you can deep fakes and AI, you can get on and act like you're a celebrity or something. Like that's what I'm saying. That the attack vectors are changing slightly, but you just have to be open and look at them from different ways. And that's one of the things I was talking about, how where you can have people that's used to looking at threats one way, but have the new generation of people who are seeing all these different other avenues that we could be attacked by, and why their input is going to be very critical. So if you are a person that's interested in those things, do not stop being interested in them. I'm pretty sure they're going to create divisions and jobs just for AI detection. Like, I think that's gonna be cool. Like, that'll be something I would want to look into for real.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just look at the attack surface. It's increasing nationwide, worldwide, and just go from there. Just follow where it's going, and that's how you're going to adapt to changes in this industry.
I want to ask you, did you have? like any parting words that you want to leave the viewers and the guests with?
Definitely. I would just say, if you're new to this industry, if you're trying to get into this industry more so, pace yourself. Really take a step back to understand what you want to do, right? Um, Sands released a poster of the coolest cyber jobs, and it has the descriptions of everything. Cyber Season released 45 cyber jobs, particular to InfoSec. Really understand what it is you want to do. You may have to start off entry level and then pivot later on, but if you can actually design a path for where you want to go, what training you want to take, what is unique to you, because the problem you're going to run into is you're going to want to learn everything. And while it's good to be a jack of all trades, eventually it's going to stop, and you're going to have to become a master of something, right? So really preface, okay, I'm going to get this SOC role in order to become a digital forensic analyst, in order to become a malware analyst, in order to pivot to industrial control systems or IoT or cloud security, right? Use these entry level roles as a stepping stone, right? And if you're coming in with a help desk background, system admin background, you already have more than the person who doesn't, right? So just preface what you want to do for the people who are trying to get into this industry and pivot. For my folks who are already in this industry, I just want to say keep doing what you're doing, right? Keep learning, and really just make sure you're doing what you can to make an impact of where you at. Now I understand every environment is not the same. Everybody doesn't have the same leaders, the same morale, burnout, all these things that plague a SOC or a cybersecurity team. These things do exist. However, decide what you're going to do. Decide, hey, I'm going to make sure if I go to this next, if I go to this next place, I'm going to interview the interviewer, right? Tell them, hey, what is your environment like? Because I haven't had a great morale where I'm coming from. What type of tools do you use? How big is your team? Will I be expected to put in more work or put in more hours than what's on this job description, right? Is there any room for any ad hoc activity and where you guys may come to me and ask? So I would just say, when you're looking for your next role, take time to write down questions for that particular hiring manager or that particular company, right? Because these days, your time is money. Your time is money. And you really do not want to waste your time doing something you're not happy with. I am more concerned with your happiness than you being another worker bee and a cog in the system, right? So this is your life. If this is the industry you want to choose, preface it and plan it out. And then decide, if I'm already in this industry, I've been in it for a while, I want to do something else, or I don't like the company I'm with, or it's just time for a change. Research, research, research. The world is at your fingertips. You have a computer in your pocket. Just do as much research as possible. Use stuff like TrueUp. I know that was mentioned already in one of your past videos. TrueUp is really good to look at tech layoffs and current jobs and valuations of company. Yeah, just use a lot of markers and metrics to figure out what you want to do. So that's pretty much all I have, for everybody in the industry.
Well, that's dope, man. It's been another good episode, man. I'm so glad you put the people on a lot of game. You guys that are still watching right now, you know what to do. Hit the like button, comment. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. This help us out in the algorithm. And like I said earlier in the episode, guys, I am working on some big things for future clients on financing. Also, like I said, if you need help with getting into tech, you can do course careers. Use my code, $50 off on that code, or you can do Springboard and really get some practical projects and some experience under your belt so you can land you a cybersecurity job. But like I always say, guys, until next time, let's stay textual. It's your boy HD, and we out.